coupled with a brick, brew and a friend, bleed orange and blue to the bitter end. Come and join us, DNVR. We are DNVR.
We are DNVR, and we are live from Studio A. The A stands for we've got ourselves a tight quarterback race once again. We'll talk about all that in a second, but first I want to give a shout out to our presenting sponsor, MSU Denver. MSUdenver.edu/online is where you can scope out all they have to offer. It's unlimited, honestly. Whatever you are interested in, MSU Denver can help you further your education in that area, and they will do so in a manner that allows you to keep a full-time job. MSU Denver students work twice as many hours as students attending any other college institution, so make sure you check them out. MSUdenver.edu/online. What's going on, Mace?
Not much. By the way, I got to give a shout out to one of our DNVR partners, Legal Pete's, because there's one just down the street from us on East Colfax, and had a little bit of a chance to get lunch, something that's been rare for me in training camp. Walked down there, but of course, absentmindedly, I left my wallet in my car.
Okay.
But the person behind the counter saw my phone, said, "Oh, you can just pay with Apple Pay." I've never paid with Apple Pay before, by the way. That is phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
That is a game changer.
Yeah, your life has been changed.
Yes, but the fact that they were just so helpful.
Right.
Oh, you got your phone, just pay with Apple Pay. I didn't even think of that.
Did you have to set it up?
It was already set up, as it turned out. I just haven't used it.
That's kind of that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, so that's the kind of service you get at Legal Pete's.
Illegal Pete's,
Yes.
Amazing. I recommend the steak and potato burrito. What did you get?
Baja fish burrito, always. Love the fish burrito. It's the best fish burrito I've had anywhere other than Seattle.
That's wild.
Yeah, that's how good it is.
All right, Mace, let's jump into what the people want to know. Big day for Teddy Bridgewater today. I framed it before practice as a huge opportunity for Drew Lock because I thought he had an opportunity to create legitimate separation today. He did not do so. Teddy Bridgewater took advantage of his opportunity to kind of narrow the gap.
Yeah, and of course, we saw Teddy go against the ones a lot on Saturday. Today, Drew went against the ones a lot, but it's interesting how both quarterbacks kind of almost lose confidence going against the ones.
Oh, I'm
and then
sure.
It's tough to kind of get it back. And I would say, like for Drew, for example, he goes against the ones a lot. He struggled over the course of the day when you're accounting for both team and 7-on-7. Drew in total was 7 of 14. And he had 2 interceptions, 1 in 7-on-7 by Pat Surtain. He just didn't see Surtain. And that's on him. He's got to see Surtain there in coverage. The second interception at the end, Trinity Benson doesn't finish the route, but it's also not a great throw. And it was a nice break by Rogesterman Ferris, signed yesterday, getting a pick today. But Drew against the ones, a good chunk of practice, but then the last period against the twos, kind of shaky. Teddy against the twos for much of practice, last period, 2 minute against the ones, drops a dime to Jerry Jeudy, 25 yards down the left sideline underneath the zone coverage to set up the game-winning field goal in that scenario. So it's almost like both of these guys, it's almost like they both need to kind of build confidence, and that when they lose it, they both kind of go into these kind of funks.
Slumps, yeah.
Yeah. And one thing for Drew, under pressure, had to kind of take off, had the whistle blow on him a couple of times. The whistle blew on him once in 7-on-7, didn't get a playoff. It wasn't a great day for Drew at all.
And again, that's just such a shame because I felt like today was an opportunity for him to.
It was.
We could be sitting here right now saying, "Wow, Drew Lock has won, 4 out of the 5 practices." You would have had it as 3.
I would have had 2-2-1 or 3-1-1.
3-1-1. Either
3-1-1.
way, that's separation.
Yes.
And when we would have had it at 4-1-0 on the scoreboard, and it would have just been one of those things where we're saying Teddy's going to have to string together quite a run here if he wants to get back into it. Now, as we know, things really ramp up tomorrow when they finally put on full pads. So this was taken with a little bit more of a grain of salt than that. But again, if it had been somewhere between 4-1 or 3-1-1,
yeah,
you would have been saying, look, he's on the track to pulling away. Now, you have it as 3-2-1, right?
Yeah.
Or 2-2-1.
2-2-1.
2-2-1.
I have it 2-2-1, and if we're going for golf, basically it's all square after 5. If we have it on stroke play, I've got Drew up by a stroke.
Right. So
But
it's
and then I think on our score, you'll be able to read our scorecard later in the day. If it's not a tie, but it's as close as you can get.
Yeah, it's going to be really close.
5 days without it being a tie. And Vic said after practice it's even Steven, and I don't think he's BSing everyone. This really is even Steven. Right
I mean, he's probably taking a little bit wider view than we are, scoring every practice like that.
Well,
for him, 1 point or a couple points here and there on the scoreboard is really even.
And they're they may gauge it a little differently than the media does. Like, here's an example. On Saturday, 1 versus 1, Teddy gets picked off by McTelvin Agim. Tipped, deflected, Agim catches it, goes to the house. Today, Draymond Jones, tip drill, same direction, going to the right. 1 versus 1, tips it. It falls incomplete, but tips are so random in outcome that the coaches are going to score that the same way.
But tips... You're right. The outcome, but
right. They're not gonna say, "Oh, it was a worse play for Teddy than for Drew because Agim happened to grab it and take it to the house." They're gonna score. They're gonna score that equally against each quarterback.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of fair. Quarterbacks shouldn't be throwing balls that are getting hit, so that is on them. So it is a negative. It's not unlucky for the quarterback, and obviously, yeah, sometimes it's gonna get picked, sometimes it's gonna drop, and you get lucky. Right. But that is the quarterback's fault, because I saw some debate about that when Teddy had the 2 tips the other day as to whether it's just a bad break or if that's the quarterback's fault. The quarterback, their windows exist in between those hands.
Yeah, and like for example, with Drew at the end of practice today, Trinity Benson kind of stops on the route. Well, Jerry Jeudy kind of slowed down on his route when Kareem Jackson jumped it on Saturday. Mm-hmm. And another thing is kind of interesting on that, someone asked me, what would have happened if Trinity had run out the route? Well, the way Ferris was breaking on the pass, either that's a breakup or there's a collision and that ball pops up. And again, that's on the quarterback as well.
Yeah, and it's probably good that both of those guys pulled up a little bit and they didn't have the collision because, well, we do have a quarterback going that is meaningful.
Yeah,
we don't want anyone getting hurt.
And then sometimes the defense makes a play and hauls in the pick, and sometimes they don't. I mean, that's Drew first pass of practice on Saturday. Trey Marshall had his hands on it, could have picked it off. It was overthrown, and this is the sort of kind of nuance that we try to do as much as we can of this in terms of our analysis, but ours is going to be a little bit more kind of big picture in terms of results. But this is the sort of discussion that goes on among the coaches. The other thing today, it's against the twos, but you want to see Teddy go vertical. Teddy went vertical today. Mm-hmm. Took the shots, delivered nice on-time passes, had a deep shot to Jerry Jeudy, had a deep shot to Deontay Spencer. And that's, with both of these guys, you want to see what they're missing. Is Drew making better decisions? Is Teddy showing a willingness to go deep and try to squeeze it in from time to time? That it was a good day. So that in that regard, it was a good day for Teddy. It was a day that he really needed after Saturday as well. Just like Drew kind of needed to steady the ship on Friday after he struggled on Thursday.
Right. And unfortunately, while this is good content that it's close, it's not the best thing for the Broncos. You don't want it to be close. You want one guy to just take that thing and run away with it.
Yeah, you're right. This is going to be kind of throwing something out there, and people might perceive this in the wrong way. I'm getting some Dilfer, DeBerg, Kerry Collins vibes watching these quarterbacks. And here's what I mean. They're 2 of the 32 best quarterbacks walking the earth. Mm-hmm. They are probably going to play 10, 12, 14 years in this league somehow, some way. And may even be part of a team that has a deep playoff run. Heck, Kerry Collins and Dilfer started in the same Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. But they weren't guys that you really wanted to build around long term.
That was the Super Bowl that had the back-to-back return touchdowns, didn't it?
Yes.
That was awesome.
And then, other than that, the Giants didn't score
at
all. So their offense got shut out by that all-time Ravens defense. But where they are right now, and Drew is obviously young, and this is why, to me, if they're tied, you start Drew, because there's the possibility that he could become something more. But as I kind of watch him, I see a couple of guys that are just that they have different skill sets. They can start in this league, but are we talking about guys that can get to that top 12, top 14 level on a consistent basis, not just for a year here and a year there. And that's where I'm like, I'm really not sure we see that in either of these guys.
Let me ask you this, though. What do you think is holding back Drew from being a level above that?
I think Drew has got to find a middle ground. And he's right now, he's trying not to be gunslinger Drew. And what we're seeing sometimes, especially when he's under pressure, today was shaky, Thursday was shaky. Those were the days where the defense brought pressure. And it seems like that sort of pressure unravels his decision-making a little bit, that either that he's not, instead of last year forcing it in there, he's just kind of not making a choice.
Right.
And he's either taking off or the whistle's blowing on him. And there were times today, I would say probably at least 3 times in game conditions he was going to be sacked. So it's like the processor hasn't quite got to the level under pressure that you need it to for long-term success. And with Teddy, it's just this is who he is.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is I just think it's consistency is Drew's biggest problem. He's capable of doing all the things that good quarterbacks and great quarterbacks do. He isn't capable yet of doing it consistently. To me, it might come, it might not. But there's only one way to get there, and that's with repetition.
Yeah, and maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I mentioned Steve DeBerg, former Broncos, one of the examples, and that was a guy for whom the consistency, it didn't come. Now, it was enough for him to be a guy who started a lot of games in his career. He ended up playing, I believe, in the end, like 18 seasons, many of those as starters, but the danger is you're always looking for the next guy. If Drew is better than he looks to be better than he was last year, but if Drew, the level he reaches is, say, around the league QB 20, QB 19, then he becomes that guy that you can start him, you can have a good season with him if everything is going right around him, but do you give him the big contract? Probably not. And that's where and Teddy, we kind of know him to be that type of guy. Right. What if Drew is headed in that direction as well? Because we can get excited about certain moments, and we're certainly excited about Jerry Jeudy at wide receiver, but I still see the 4th best quarterback room in the AFC West right now when I see these guys out there.
And honestly, that's a pretty high bar. Because third is a decent bar. It's not easy to beat.
Third is at worst slightly above average. Derek Carr, Marcus Mariota.
Right. I mean, Derek Carr was an MVP candidate
for a while last year. Yeah, and then he kind of tailed off. And Derek Carr.
And the year that he got hurt.
Yeah, and Derek Carr's and he's one of those guys that we would say is second tier.
Definitely.
And yet we say is an MVP candidate. But that's sort of the bar for the willingness to give a quarterback a big contract, right? Are they at least like in that top dozen?
Right.
Derek Carr as a starter is in that top dozen.
Yes.
And he's probably on the lower end of the guy that you'd give a big contract to.
Yes.
I mean, Minnesota may regret that. I think Minnesota probably does regret right now the Kirk Cousins contract, everything that's going on up there.
Yeah.
But the Ravens regret the Joe Flacco contract. And even though Drew is young, we are talking about contract time bearing down here in less than 2 years. So he's got, anyway, that's 5 days in. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting, is that you've got a couple of guys who are, they're good enough to start, but are they good enough to build around? And that's where I'm doubtful.
Yeah, that's tough. All right, give us a couple other plays that stood out to you from the quarterbacks today.
Okay, I mean, I kind of mentioned the deep shots for Teddy as well, and I talked about Drew kind of just basically having to eat the ball a little bit or scramble out of trouble. I mean, those were the things that really jumped out. I go back to my play of the day is probably the Teddy pass in 2 minutes to Jerry Jeudy going downfield. That because that's finding the gap in coverage against the ones. There haven't been many opportunities for both quarterbacks to where they've been able to find gaps in that coverage. It's been so tight. Teddy getting it in there that says a lot for him. And the other thing also, both of these quarterbacks, you're seeing, okay, if Judy's out there, the mismatch, we're going to him. There was a play, it was about 2/3 way during practice in team. I believe it was 3rd and 4. And it's Teddy against the twos, but Jerry Judy's out there. There's a lot of mixing and matching going on. And I turned, and I was talking with, I believe, Ben Albright, and I said, well, okay, you got Teddy, and you got Teddy out there. You got Judy, just throw to him.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
If you're smart, you just throw to him and trust that he gets there. And he did. And the other thing that Teddy did today that he struggled at in some of the practice earlier, when he was doing well in OTAs, he was able to anticipate the breaks of his receivers and thus throw as they started their break and drop the ball in the spot that they got to. He was doing that with Jerry Jeudy. He did that with Trinity Benson today. So the timing for Teddy, it was as off as it was Saturday, it was on today.
Needed it.
He did.
Really
needed it. And it's like you said, it's a missed opportunity for Drew.
Yes.
Drew could have gotten separation today, and he didn't. And Teddy closed the gap again.
It should be noted
that
he had the harder task today, which was going up against the number 1 defense.
Yeah.
The same way that Teddy had the harder task on Saturday.
But he didn't have as much red zone work, which was interesting. Teddy, they really tried to throw him in the red zone in that practice, and I think there was only like the one red zone period today. And Drew did have a touchdown in red zone, hitting Melvin Gordon on a little slant.
Nice. So yeah, I mean, basically, if you were setting odds on the last 2 practices, you would have set the odds on Drew Lock to have the better practice on Saturday and Teddy to have the better practice today. So the favorite of the day won just based on the challenge that was ahead of them.
True. But you want to see one of these guys against the ones do well, and that's why move the ball. It's both days they've reversed the order of emphasis when they went move the ball for that final period, because Teddy got all the work with most of the work with the ones on Saturday, and then Drew got moved the ball against the ones. Had a couple of nice passes. Also, kind of showed the running game as well, getting downfield. And then the play I love from Drew on Saturday was where he hit Noah on that 4th down, and he looks right and he looks in one right, throws left, so he gets to the 3rd read and hits Noah outside to keep the drive alive. That's terrific. I love seeing that. That's what I want to see from Drew. And then today, Drew, kind of in the soup against the ones, not to the degree that Teddy was on Saturday, and I think that's key, but also not facing as many of the kind of field position challenges in the red zone. We got the compressed field defenders all around as Teddy did, and just it was not what he was hoping for today. And the other thing is also on Pat Surtain's pick, he's got to see Surtain. I mean, it's a good play by Pat, but the quarterback's got to see him.
Oh, especially in 7-on-7.
Yeah. So that 7-on-7 period, it turned out, did not augur well for the rest of the day for Drew. Unfortunately.
Yeah, that's been happening to these guys.
So yeah, I mean, very little separation. 2 quarterbacks who remain incomplete puzzle pieces.
Well, and it's kind of funny it works out this way, because now it gets real tomorrow when the pads go on, and it's fitting that the competition is basically square going into when it really counts. Because it would have been weird if there was like a big lead for one of these guys, and then Vic Fangio was like, well, none of that really counted, and we're like, oh, how do we do this? It doesn't matter. It's close going into as things ramp up. We are going to get to some of the other players who stood out today in practice, but first I want to give a shout out to Breckenridge Brewery. We had our grand opening 2.0 party here on Saturday. It was an absolute blast. Thanks to everyone who came out, and I drank several Good Company hard seltzers. I will say, I've been trying to turn everyone on to this. Hard seltzer on ice with a lime.
Oh, now that you're going with the lime, You're throwing a little curveball in there.
The lime was, it was, I had to make a decision of whether it was an official part of it. It is. Okay. You got to have the lime in there. Take any seltzer, pour it on ice, put a lime in there. It's the official drink of the summer.
Sounds pretty good.
It is. It's amazing. It even works with the lemonade seltzers too. Obviously, you get a little more fresh citrus in there. It's fantastic. So, I think we're gonna do a little grill night tonight. Ooh. Probably have one of those as I'm grilling up some kebabs.
Yeah. Well, You can
actually, I'm doing grilled fajitas.
Oh,
That's right.
okay. I'm not a fan of kebabs.
Interesting.
They taste good. It's just I like eating them. I don't like grilling them.
They are kind of a pain to grill.
Exactly. I want, like, if it's steak, you just throw it on. You get that thing up to 550 degrees, and you throw the steak on there. You flip it over. You're good.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of fun to do the kebabs though. Like, I like building them.
That's the thing. Everything that they taste good. They're fun to build. They're just not fun to grill.
Yeah, and like taking it off the skewer can sometimes be a pain.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I find is if I have it hot enough, then the skewer is gonna burn and
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
true.
little ashes.
But then you get like that little smoky flavor added to the food.
That's true. What else? You can also tell you about Breckenridge Brewery, like RK mentioned. They've got the Good Company hard seltzers that are being sold right here in the DNVR bar. And you know how we love our Breck Brews and Breck Seltzers, but what we love even more is the fact that Breckenridge Brewery is teaming up with the National Parks Conservation Association this summer. Last year, the fires here in Colorado were so devastating for so many. And this is one of many reasons why Breck Brew will donate 1% of all their profits this summer to the National Parks Conservation Association. So you buy a pint, you buy a pack, you're going to donate 1% to the great outdoors and helping that out. And we're hosting events here at the DNVR bar to promote this, including just a chance to come on down, have a Breck Brewer seltzer, and go away with some awesome swag from Breck Brew. You can also enter to win a $30,000 Escape Pod trailer if you go on over to their website and enter. So you can check that out. You go to breckbrew.com/ingoodco. That's breckbrew.com/ingoodco for more details on winning that $30,000 Escape Pod trailer. Good luck, and tag us and your friends at Breck Brew when you submit your entry to win.
All right, I also want to give a shout out to Chevalier Mortgage. It's stressful to buy a house right now, and if you've attempted the process, you know exactly what we're talking about. The market crazy right now, but Mike and Virginia Chevalier will take the burden off this extremely difficult process. They'll alleviate so much stress and take so many worries off your plate. So check out Chevalier Mortgage. They want to make this a stressless, easy process for you. They're awesome over there. They're part of the DNVR family. They're big, diehard Denver sports fans. So check them out at dnvrmortgage.com, and you can get a free DNVR shirt or hat when you sign up. And you also get a free consultation to discuss all of your options. That is Michael Chevalier, NMLS. Where is it? Michael Chevalier, NMLS number 1931006, and Virginia Chevalier, NMLS number 1910631. Hit him up, Chevalier Mortgage.
Yeah.
All right,
what
Mace,
else happened today?
Tell me.
All right. The bread for this team is going to be buttered offensively on the ground. And I thought Javonte Williams had his best day today.
Good.
Just running hard. Now, we're going to see a little bit more when the pads go on. But to use that quote from Ted Lasso, I know I've used it before, he runs like he's angry at the grass. Runs with purpose. It's not just that he has decisive cuts, that he hits the hole. He runs angry. And I felt like maybe he was running a little angry because maybe he's feeling some pressure from a guy like Mike Boone, who's having a really good camp.
Yeah.
And had a couple of nice runs today as well. But this was the day where I thought Javonte Williams really looked assertive in how he ran the football.
Great news.
Great news also that the holes were there.
Yes.
Some good work along the offensive line. Definitely better for the first team O-line in run blocking than pass pro. I mentioned some of the sacks earlier. For example, I believe it was Von Miller, and Von Miller's going to beat people. Von Miller gets past Bobby Massey on one side, and next thing you know, Von is just pulling up.
Right.
So definitely O-line much more comfortable when they were driving forward on the run than in pass protection.
Speaking of Massey, kind of looks like he's pulling away with the right tackle competition. Three straight days with the ones.
3 straight days with the ones. Calvin Anderson working at left tackle with the twos, and you're starting to get the sense now that Anderson's probably pegged for that swing role.
Yeah.
And that being said, if he's the swing tackle, Bobby Massey, because of various and sundry injuries, has missed 14 games the last 2 years. So Calvin Anderson, if he's a swing tackle, he's probably going to start a bunch of games this year.
You hope not, but
You hope not, but you
expect
expect that to happen. And Anderson we actually caught up with him after practice. And by the way, he solved a 4x4 Rubik's Cube that Vic Lombardi gave him in, I believe, about just a little over 5 minutes.
4x4, though.
Not the 3x3. The 3x3 he can do in a snap, but Vic brought him the 4x4, and then I had to kind of mix it up, because I just happened to be standing right there. And so I kind of mixed it up, and then took him a little over 5 minutes, and he figured it out.
Wow.
Got some tips from Calvin Anderson on solving one of those things. First of all, he says, you got to get the middle pieces. On a 4x4, he says you start with a 4 in the middle. I think he would have done it quicker, except his fingers were taped. This is the other thing. He still had the tape on his fingers from practice.
Wow.
And he's sitting there he's doing a Rubik's Cube there on camera. You can find it on Vic's Twitter feed, by the way.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. But Calvin, he looks like he could take Cameron Fleming's job. They signed Fleming. Fleming hasn't seen a first-team snap yet, by the way. Calvin
didn't
Anderson
he in
has.
OTAs and it didn't go very well?
Yeah, he got burned. It was a bad day for him. And right now, I was at field level today. I don't see why, if Anderson plays as he is, which is a solid swing tackle, I don't see why you would keep Fleming.
Has he ever played on the inside?
I'm not sure. I want to say earlier in his career he did.
Okay, so maybe...
But I don't have it in front of me.
I mean, you did pay him a decent amount of money.
But you can recover a lot of that. I think you'd have I believe the savings would be in the 7 figures if you let him go.
Okay.
So Anderson left tackle today. He's been right tackle. It just kind of looks like he's headed in the swing tackle direction right now, which is fine. Noah Fant had a drop.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was actually Drew hit him. It was 3rd and 4. Drew looks to the left, leads him. It's actually a nice throw by Drew off his hands. Not good.
And no one really wants to hear excuses, but when I go back and watch games from last season, there was just such a perfect storm of mistakes from the offense.
Yeah.
It was like when Drew was on, he's throwing and hitting Jerry Jeudy in the hands, and it's hitting the ground, and that kills a drive. You just go back and watch the first game of the season. Multiple drives were killed by dropped passes. And I'm not, singling out Noah here. I'm not trying to single out Jeudy either. But it's
we know who did him, though.
Right. But it's like when Drew was on, the receivers were off. When the receivers were on, Drew was off. Mm-hmm. And it's just one of those things where it's like, man, what was going on? No Sutton, of course. Then, sometimes they're having a good drive and they get a sack or a hold from the offensive line. It's like they just – it was – in golf, if you're playing a partner game, there's a term called you're ham and egging, meaning when I have a bad hole, you have a good hole. When you have a bad – it was the opposite of that. They weren't ever able to pick each other up. It was just like one person's – football's such a team sport that you need all 11 guys – going if you're going to put together a touchdown drive, and it was so rare for that to happen. I hope that they get rid of that this year. I
hope they do as well. And Noah's had a good camp, but it's just kind of you note that, and certainly it's frustrating for Noah. But it was kind of part of just for Drew overall. Kind of it wasn't that he did something wrong on that play, but Teddy's dealt with drops as well. By the way, Tyree Cleveland dealing with a little injury wasn't out there today. So
he's got an uphill battle from here on out to make this team.
He does, and I think what was interesting is as they're shuffling the receivers, we're starting to see Trinity Benson get the occasional first-team look again. Doesn't mean he's a first-teamer, just that they're going to give him that look from time to time. Seth Williams getting an occasional look up there rotationally with the ones, and that's the one that's the concerning thing for Tyree Cleveland, because if Cleveland can't get himself out of the soup when it comes to these drops that he had those first 4 days of camp. I mean, Teddy might have had close to perfect in those first 3 days if Tyree had not been dropping passes. And if it's unfortunately for Tyree Cleveland, they pick another day 3 receiver this year. Juwan Winfrey found this out last year. When you're one of those day 3 receivers, they keep adding one of those guys every year, you are very replaceable.
Oh, yeah.
And I know, there was excitement based on Tyree Cleveland, based on the way he surged at the end of last year. But receivers who can, with all respect to Tyree Cleveland, receivers who can do what he can do, they're not that hard to find.
No, and
Juwan Winfrey was kind of 1.0 of this.
Yep.
He couldn't stay healthy, and then Tyree Cleveland, and now we're talking about Seth Williams.
And that's what I was going to say, is as soon as there's the younger, fresher model,
Yep.
it's real easy for them to say, hey, we want the iPhone 13, throw away the iPhone 12.
Hey, the new kid in town eventually becomes the old kid in town because there's a new kid.
Right.
That's the Eagles sang a song about this back in the day. You ever hear that song?
You were talking about the band, the Eagles. It took me a second for that to. I was like,
John,
the Philadelphia Eagles made a song about
the
that?
dude would hate this in Big Lebowski, but Johnny come lately, the new kid in town.
Yes.
And then by the end of the song, the new kid is the old kid.
Right.
And you're holding on and you're still around.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yeah. But that's football. That's life.
Well, it's a little bit different, but it applies. I overheard a coach one time at a practice in college telling the kids, my job is to recruit players better than yours. Mm-hmm. Your job is to make me not able to do that.
Yeah.
And that's basically George Payton's job is to draft players better than the ones that exist. Their job is to make him bad at his job.
My job is to draft a replacement.
Yes.
I've heard that from GMs before.
Yes.
And your job is to hold off that replacement.
Yes. Your job is to stop me from being able to do that.
Yeah.
That's where and Tyree Cleveland not off to a good start.
Yeah. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater a long time ago was part of this because the Vikings draft Christian Ponder and then he flames out and then 3 years later they draft Teddy Bridgewater in the first round.
Yep.
It's just part of the cycle. If you're not at the top dozen in terms of starters at your position, they're probably looking for a replacement.
Yes. Peter here in the comments asked if there's a punter battle on campus here. No, there was in OTAs, and apparently Sam Martin made quick work of Max Duffy.
Yeah, or they just decided they'd rather have a roster spot for another receiver.
I mean,
yeah.
I disagree with that if that was the case.
I don't think we've heard the last of Max Duffy, but I think we'll probably see him pop up on the tryout circuit this year and be in somebody's camp next year, and possibly the Broncos camp. That may well depend on who's coaching special teams. Like if Tom McMahon is back next year and Sam Martin's contract is expired because he's on a 2-year deal, it would not shock me if Max Duffy is back on this team.
There you go. There's the punter free agent scoop of the day. Anyone else? Anyone else that stood out today? Any good or bad?
I mentioned him earlier. Draymond Jones. He had the deflection at the line of scrimmage. He also knocked Melvin Gordon to the ground at one point. He was getting some good penetration throughout the day, and he was doing pretty well against the run. We saw Justin Strnad out there with the ones again. Josie Jewell still hurt. It's a great opportunity for Strnad, especially when you see Strnad in base actually get up and get involved against the run, close a hole. There was one play, Shelby kind of broke through first, and then Strnad kind of finished it off. So if Strnad can do something positive against the run, if he's not going to get engulfed in the box when teams do go to the power game, that means he could become an every down linebacker.
Right.
It means that Josie Jewell could get Wally pipped here.
Yes.
Because we know Strnad, based on his skill set, is better in coverage than Josie Jewell, with all respect to Josie.
And again, if you're in dime and there's only one guy out there, especially in, let's say it's 3rd and 11.
And we know Vic doesn't want to, I mean, he'll do some situation substitution, but he wants to leave a guy out there because he doesn't want to tip his hand personnel-wise. So if Strnad can be reasonably effective against the run, and he can cover, that allows him to change his look without changing personnel at that spot.
Yep.
And that makes him more valuable. So if Strnad, this is the key moment for him. And if Josie Jewell is still out tomorrow when the pads go on, that's another test for Strnad. If you go full pads, full contact, How does he look? Does he get engulfed in the box when they're running up the middle, or is he assertive? Is he not getting caught up in the flow of the play? Is he able to make plays and make sure that runs don't get beyond the second level? If he does that, he ought to start.
Yeah.
Because he's a more complete linebacker than Josie Jewell if he can defend the run.
Absolutely. I think the one thing that maybe Josie will have over him is just instinct.
Yeah.
That's like what he's so good at, is kind of play diagnosis and instinct. But if you can teach, you can teach those things, and you can, help Justin kind of figure that sort of stuff out.
He did have a classroom year last year.
Yes,
even though he was
that's
on
very
IR,
true.
he had a classroom and film study year. So it's not like it was a total waste of time.
All right, I think it's going to wrap up the live side of things. We're going to jump over to the podcast side, where we'll answer all of your questions. Of course, you can find that anywhere you listen to podcasts. Also, everyone who watched this with a thumbs up on your way out, we always appreciate those. And you can subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of these training camp wrap-ups. We'll be back every single day this week. Sign up, hit us with a thumbs up, and we will catch you guys later. We're going to move on to the podcast side.